April 28th, 2026. Well, the Saturday's White House Correspondents' Dinner turned into a mess as a would-be assassin, this Cole Allen guy from Torrance, California, uh, uh, made a mad dash and tried to I guess break into the situation and with some difficulty, the Secret Service did stop him, but he got by the first line of defense at the magnetometer and apparently shot one of the people with a weapon. I'm not sure whether it was with a shotgun or was it with the pistol, and but it hit his bulletproof vest. And given the type of weapons he had, neither one would be likely to penetrate the vest, although they can cause injury just from a raw impact. I don't know what exact kind of you know armor did he have, armor plate or just soft body armor. I'm not sure. But the point is on the Secret Service agent. But the point is that this has caused a big issue here. I think about how good the president's security is, the effectiveness of Secret Service, and the craziness of the Democrat Party and their role in promoting these kind of events. So, at any rate, it's a good thing that the president and all the other people in the dinner, including the cabinet members and everybody else, are safe and sound. And and we'll have to. He's planning on doing it again, although it may not be done in a hotel, because the problem with the hotel obviously was the fact that all they can screen people coming into the event. The people who are living already had taken up rooms in the hotel weren't being screened, and well, that's how this whole thing occurred. But what I'm kind of addressing here is what the Democrats are doing. This guy obviously was a Democrat and buys the radical left agenda of the AOC type people, the squad or whatever, hook, line, and sinker, obviously. And, it's what I think we're dealing with here is a form of stochastic terrorism. And what I mean by that is you throw enough uh, red meat out there, enough incendiary comments out there, eventually somebody who's mentally somewhat unstable will act on it, or somebody, let's say, believes that way of thinking, And there's a lot of this guy will not come across your typical nut type individual. Um, he seems to me to be clearly politically motivated. I think that's one thing you have to realize about him. This guy is politically motivated and fully accepts the Democrat ideology. And if you notice, the Democrats are really not doing much to condemn what happened here either. They're trying to say, well, everybody has this problem. And yes, there was an incident, particularly, I think there was one at the local level, at the state level in Minnesota, where there was an attack more from the right against somebody. Although I don't think you can say that at least national Republican rhetoric had a lot to do with it. I think it's probably due to state issues, and there's plenty of state issues in Minnesota. But here I think we're dealing with this idea that you keep going on with this continual harangue of Trump, which is a complete lie. I mean, this guy believes that Trump is a pedophile, which is completely nonsense. I mean, it's also true in Trump's past. He was a bit of attracted to the fairer sex, so to speak, but these were mature women, meaning people well above the age of consent. None of them were really underage. So that's just some kind of because he knew Epstein at one time, and there were people there. A lot of people knew Epstein, and most of the people around Epstein weren't pedophiles either. I don't think, but that's another issue. But see, this is the kind of hate rhetoric they go on. He's Hitler, he's a fascist, Nazi, and all that stuff, and he wants to end democracy. But of course, that's complete rubbish because, first of all, he has no ability to do that. And second of all, his ideology is nothing like that. I mean, this is, this is a kind of incendiary rhetoric that will lead to these things. And then we have 3 assassination attempts here. I would say, in some ways, this was probably the least successful, actually. The first one, Trump was actually Nick, grazed on the ear I would say, by it, as where I would characterize that. Um, the second one, if he'd have been at the at the a certain place at a certain time, that could have really happened, you know. And of course to have that area where the the press, moved in at times and it kind of you know took pictures of Trump out there golfing, and they didn't have that covered was kind of bad. And we keep seeing the Secret Service is not the best shots in the world either. They may need to improve on that a little bit because they missed that guy. But this one, basically was stopped in time, and I think I don't know, people have thrown out scenarios. What if he was a professional terrorist that had all kind of things that he didn't have? After all, the weapons he had were relatively modest in a way. I mean, he had a shotgun, and he had a 1911 was chambered in a 38 Super, which is a kind of a amped up version of 9mm, basically, with a 10-round magazine, I think. So I mean, if he'd have got in close to the president, it could easily have assassinated him or killed several people if he actually broke in there. I don't know exactly how quickly. I really think that that wasn't too likely to actually happen in this scenario. And it's fortunate that none of the Secret Service people were a victim either actually killed. I mean, obviously one of them was injured. I mean, I don't know how bad, but the point I mean is that the Democrats are stirring this stuff up and are fully responsible for this kind of pure hate. I mean, the Democrats are very much a hateful group. I mean, they're full of anger and hate. I think the Republicans are more kind of they're not. I mean, they have some things they do too, and we can get into that. But I think that the raw hate the Democrats portray is illustrates their nature. If you like these videos, please give me a like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, or you can also follow me on Rumble. Yeah, this is what I'm getting at is now. On the other hand, I will say this: Trump himself has the following responsibility in this whole thing, in that he definitely triggers these people deliberately. And that's a dangerous thing to do. I mean, when you're dealing with people that are known to be somewhat unstable and deliberately kind of triggering them, talking about a third term and, all that sort of thing. And kind of overplaying, I think, his claims about election fraud to the point that, I think I've said previously in some videos, I think that from a God's eye count of only the legal votes in the 2020 election, he may well have squeaked out an electoral victory of about 2 votes. That is 272 to whatever. That he might have done that if he could have won Georgia and Wisconsin. And I think there were some big irregularities there, enough that it could have been close enough. It could have happened. Most of the voter fraud is Democrat fraud. There's no doubt about that. A lot of it is really focused more on the local elections, I think, than the national one. And of course, you have the Republican fraud, which is basically the person that votes in 2 separate states, and then usually gets caught. But I mean, I think the more organized fraud, you have these like, Arizona and the Latino communities. I mean, there's things going on there. And they have these groups that are much more willing to take these kind of risks than your typical Republican would. So just by nature alone, they're going to have that. But I think Trump overplays that to the point that he wants to end democracy. No, actually, the system as we know it, that we've understood it to be, the threat to that is the Democrats. If they get in power in 2029, as I mentioned in my video, Fear of 2029, and you have all 3 key power sectors, the presidency, Senate, and House. If they get that, America as we know it is going to end. I think it's going to be a different kind of country with a different kind of, everything. There'll be massive legal changes. Rights will be that are accepted now will be curtailed. There'll be economic changes, waves of illegal immigrants brought into the country. All this would happen if they do this, you see. And I think so. They're almost projecting their own evil intentions when they say that Trump was going to end democracy in some ways. I mean, up to now, Trump has pretty much maneuvered largely in the parameters that's accepted. Now, I will say that he's a bit bold, and sometimes he goes to limits, like this Iran war. I mean, when Bush the second W did his two conflicts, he went to Congress both times for approval ahead of doing it. Okay, and this one wasn't done that way, supposedly in order to achieve, for one thing, to achieve surprise. Maybe he also knew they wouldn't approve. I don't know what they would have done. I don't think that required. But you see what I'm trying to get to is that this is you know a situation. I'm just saying, but that is not really doesn't really infringe on our rights here, and it is for a reasonable purpose. That is to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. The question is how well it will work and how necessary it was. And we could get in. I've discussed that in other videos. I won't go any further on that. But I'm just saying that's something they can point to. But other than that, I mean, he was using the law to deport illegal immigrants. The Democrats are out there saying that we should not have an organization. They're trying to disband the very organization that provide any sovereignty of the country, the ICE and the Border Patrol. Okay, they're saying they don't want any organization apparently that can actually deport somebody when a court has ordered them deported, for instance, as an example, or just let people come in without any vetting. Anybody that wants to come here, and then apparently get a lot of social benefits. I mean, what kind of a policy is this? Well, it's an insane policy, and that's why I continue to condemn the Democrats. So, in that sense, I'll attack the Democrats, but I'm not saying that they're Hitler or anything like that. But they will make life for us a lot worse if they actually get in power. I think that's almost the case, and I mean the power of 2029, where they may well have all branches. Because if we keep losing ground here politically, I mean, I look at these polls, and they're pretty scary. I mean, even Rasmussen has Trump's approval down by 10 points. And then of course, these crazy all adults polls that are really off the wall. Those are, down 20 points and more, and that's nonsense stuff. But still, this is not a good situation for us. And if we lose the House, even if the war in Iran hadn't happened, you still would have had a big problem, I think, on holding the House, even if everything was good. You can imagine, because usually the party in power loses seats in the House, and we have a very narrow win this time. Even winning the presidential election in an electoral landslide, we actually ended up with 2 less seats than we had in the previous House election. So unless we get our act together on campaigning, I think that's another problem. This idea of call for civility may not be the way to deal with this. We have to call the Democrats out in a way that's pretty intense. And right now, this puts us back into this, well, we got to play Mr. Nice Guy. And I don't think that's going to win the election in reality. And I don't see any sign the Democrats are backing off at all. John Fetterman, well, he's going to be, how would I say, a one-term senator. I guess he could try to become a Republican, but be kind of a moderate Republican. Maybe. So far he's shown no signs of changing parties, and I don't know he really is a Republican either. He's just like a sane Democrat like they used to have many years ago, not like the current AOC and squad type people and Bernie Sanders types. So anyway, that's just kind of what I think about this situation. I do think that they are engaged in a stochastic terrorism to try to cause trouble. Look at the damage these people have done. The whole make a hero out of a criminal like George Floyd, who basically was a drug addict and died of an overdose, and some stupid cop had his knee on the guy's neck, which didn't kill him. It wasn't his knee on his throat. I don't think it blocked his carotid artery or anything. And what the guy needed was immediate medical attention because he had fentanyl in his system. But that wasn't being administered because of the situation there. But that's a whole different thing. And yet they burned down cities over this. I mean, look at the damage that happened to Minneapolis over this. They haven't recovered from it yet. So this is the kind of thing we're dealing with Democrats. And they basically tacitly approve of this stuff to actually out and out promote it, somewhere in that zone. So anyhow, that's my thoughts on this. Okay, as we're recording this tonight, we don't know quite what's going to happen on the war. I'll make a couple of comments there. It looks like basically the big issue now is the issue of Iran surrendering this uranium hexafluoride, which again, I'm not sure they can even do it if they want to in any timely way. They could agree to it, but I mean, how do you get it out of the ground, and who's going to get it out of the ground? I don't know, because it got buried in those bombing attacks from last year. But for the time being, I mean, both sides are blocking the other guy's shipments, and we'll see. I tend to think that maybe the war will resume shortly. I'm not sure. It looks like that they may go back to bombing. I mean, but we'll have to see how that goes. I mean, and whether that will really get the Strait opened, even if it does, that's another issue. So anyway, that's kind of where I am on that. Well, probably by the time this video has its run, we may know a little bit more about that. So as always, I'll be posting this on YouTube and Rumble, and the address of my social media accounts are in the description below. So all for this time.